Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Am I Successful Yet? Or if it's your first time here, thanks for listening. On this podcast, we talk about all things success, but also that weird middly bit of what you thought success looked like, and now it's changing, and you're in this weird spot and trying to figure out what's next. And I've noticed over the last week or so that part of what's next is trying to, see the wood for the trees because of the mental load that your current version of life is currently putting on you. So, why do I talk about this? I talk about this because, as most of you amazing humans out there listening know, I am almost 40 and likely entering that period of perimenopause, as are most people around me. And we are getting to a point in our lives where we're trying to figure out, why that's happening, what is happening. This period of life has been, lovingly referred to as cougar puberty by some, people out there on the interwebs. And I completely agree, because it's like this weird time in your life where you're trying to figure out what's what. But the additional thing going on right now, my age group of friends, anywhere between that sort of 30s to 35 to 50 really. That mental load is really huge, and I just wanted to acknowledge what that actually looks like. So everyone's mental load is kind of different, but I wanted to acknowledge what that looks like for some people. So if you are say you're in a relationship and you've got that kind of 2.5 kids, you and your partner living in the house, you've got a mortgage, you've both got jobs. Now, the mental load there is around caregiving. It is around who cleans the house. It is around who is paying bills, or how bills are being paid, probably more correctly. It is thinking about what's next. It's thinking about any health concerns within the family unit. It's thinking about what's to eat for dinner. How do we get promoted? Should I get promoted? Should she get promoted? Should my kids play sport? When should they start? Are they going to be any good? There's just this kind of ongoing, requirement to always be successful, in inverted commas, when in sort of all aspects of our lives. And if we break it down a little bit, the mental load covers all of the things going on in your brain. And those things are likely to be health related, caring responsibility related, work, career, business related, oftentimes money related, and then just your own kind of how you're feeling about certain situations. And I bring this up because I've had 2 girlfriends reach out to me in the last 3 days, talking about how that mental load is really impacting them. And the ability to try and even have that conversation becomes past a point of being able to even get the words out to articulate how frustrated, how upset, how under the pump you are feeling to try and handle daily regular tasks. And it's not necessarily depression, and it's not necessarily anxiety. It's just the pit that you get in with this incredible mental load that a lot of people are facing. Should I buy another house? Should I buy a house at all? Should I keep saving? Should I get promoted? Should I try for another child? Should I support my children in a different school? There's so many kind of thoughts. And this episode is really an acknowledgement of the craziness of those thoughts, and how you might be able to start to gather those thoughts and categorize them in a way that is actually going to support you. Now, there's a few things to that, and I'm going to kind of draw on a little bit of some other different commentators in the way that they talk about, handling the mental load, but also kind of sitting with these limiting beliefs or thoughts that are not necessarily serving you. So the first one I'm going to draw on, and this came out in one of my mentoring sessions last week, was it's literally called The Work of Byron Katie, and I will put this down below. I've learnt this from my work with Erica Kramer. And in The Work by Byron Katie, she essentially challenges you on really the limiting beliefs or the thoughts that come up as a result of, the mental load or what's happening in your life. And the first question is always, is that thought true? And the second question is, but is it really true? And the third question is, who would you be if you didn't have that belief? Or what do you do as a result of that belief? Or how do you kind of show up in the world? And then the fourth and final thing is, imagine if you didn't have that, how would you show up? So it's almost taking stock of all of the things that are happening in your brain, in your mind, to give you this feeling of just, I'm just going to call it general anxiety or general just uneasiness or general inability to just cope with making standard decisions like what are we having for dinner. If there's so many of those thoughts floating around your brain, it's very hard to figure out a straight and narrow path, or just a straight path, doesn't have to be narrow, a straight path towards, I guess, what that next step is. And so the work really helps, one part of that, which is around your limiting beliefs. But another part of that is then kind of teasing out exactly why those thoughts are sort of sitting there. And I sort of challenge you to sit down, and I know that no one listening to this episode that is resonating has time to do this, but I know that you need to take at least an hour out of your day where you can go for a walk, go and sit by some water, or go and, sit by a tree or whatever it is, and just take a paper and pen and start to write down all of the things that are in your head. And I think that the best way of doing this is to categorize those thoughts. So categorize them in a way that you can sort of start to compartmentalize each of the thought patterns that are happening so that the mental load is starting to feel segmented. And that way you can start to build on solutions for each of those segments as they are coming up, as opposed to attempting to solve all of the problems, all of the issues, or all of the mental load that is floating around your brain all the time. Because that's impossible. No one solves all the problems all at once. No one does all the things all at once. And in one of my guest episodes recently, we learned that you cannot have it all at the same time. But the reality is that, you don't need to have it all, but you can potentially, you do. There are a lot of things that you're already managing and you're already doing. How can we get the next best thing of, I guess, almost having it all? And in my mind, the way of doing that is essentially to start to categorize those thoughts where we can tackle one part at a time. So the first thing is health. And I'm making health the first thing because that's always the first thing to go. So I know that health and wellness and fitness is one of the things that supports people's to put all the ducks in a row. And organize the thoughts in their brain. For some people, it's lifting weights. For some people, it's going for a walk. For some people, it's doing some crazy thing like CrossFit or F45 or whatever it is. But it just helps to kind of focus on something or one thing for say 45 minutes in a day, even if it's 3 times a week, just to drown out the thinking and the things that are going on. So what are your goals, or what are your thoughts more so around health? And then I think you need to create one step that you can take or you can do to support solving the thoughts around your health. And this is always starting with you, not with all the other people that you have responsibilities for. The second thing then is around career, job, business. And again, what are all the thoughts that you need to get out? Write them all down. What is the actual realistic type of things that you can do to support this area of your life, with one micro action at the end? The next one is around money, and it might be that you want to leave a business. It might be that you want to take a redundancy. It might be that you want to get a new job. It might be that your partner needs to get a new job, or one of you is going to need to stop work for some sort of reason. Challenge you to figure out, I guess, and I learned this in some of my coaching years ago, around what your magic number is, what you and your family actually need to survive, and then work backwards from there. And then you can start to look to other people, and other people is going to be things like caregiving responsibilities. It's going to be, which, extends to children, extends to partners, extends to parents, elderly parents, other relatives or friends that you give support to, and try and map out, I guess, what the most important relationships are there and how you might be able to support those people in your life without stopping supporting you and stopping giving caregiving responsibilities to yourself. So that is my thought today for, I think it's high time that we need to start categorizing the mental load instead of getting to a point where it's so big and it's so scary and it's so deep and it's so dark that we cannot even articulate what we're feeling or how we're feeling it, because there's just too many things. And it might not be that any of those things are the biggest decision you need to make or the scariest thing. And it's not that, you're deciding on really, really hard things. The reality is, when you've got 1,000 decisions to make in a day, categorizing them in a way that allows you to get to an ending or a solution or a way forward quicker is going to support you. So this episode is really, firstly, awareness that the mental load is playing on you, your partner, your children, all of those things. Try and start to think about other people's as well. And then the second thing is then take an arrow away from whatever you're doing to take a step back and figure out what your mental load looks like and how you can categorize it. And then I guess the third part of it really is you need to figure out what's the most important thing. Again, in some of my mentoring recently, I had one of my mentees was talking about how she wanted to get promoted in her job at work. And when we kind of dug into it a little bit deeper, the conversation was also around the fact that she was looking to go through the IVF process this year. And if she was to get a new job or a promotion, it might mean that she'd have to leave the comfort, but also the support and understanding of the team that she's currently in, that she really loves, and then potentially have to do that IVF journey in a new team, learning a new role, in potentially in a different organization. And once we kind of got down to it, we realized that it wasn't necessarily the promotion that was the most important thing. It was more so the IVF journey, and that was going to be potentially just for the remainder of this year. And right now we're in May of 2026. And she was able then to sort of compartmentalize the thoughts and things going on in her head so that she could start to focus on what the most important thing was. So I have talked about this before, whatever the most important thing is, but it's so hard to identify what that is when you've got that insane brain fog because there is such a big mental load on you to make decisions on every single tiny little thing every day. The other thing I will say is lean on your tribe, lean on the people around you to be able to support you. Reach out and say, I am not coping. And that is not you failing. The reality is lots of people are not coping. And the more we talk about it, the more we have conversations about it, and the more we acknowledge that it's just a fucking thing that happens, the better off we are all going to be. So check in with people. Say hello. Are you okay? Is everything good? What's news? What's going on? That is the episode today. And I really appreciate you being here. And all my love to all of the people that are experiencing an insane mental load at the moment. You know, otherwise, apart from the internal things that are going on, obviously the external factors in the world at the moment are a bit crazy. And we're all kind of, just living the human experience alongside each other. But there just seems to be a lot of things happening right now. So all my love to everyone that is, handling the human experience as best they can. There is one of my new stickers coming out will be, I'm just trying to do my best. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. And I will see you, or I will speak to you on the next episode of Am I Successful Yet? With Rachael Karlyl. I am your host. That is me. And have an amazing day.